Man is stunned to find a drowning orc girl. He had a genius idea to save her. Derek Fenwood hated detours, not in the way most people dislike inconveniences, with a small sigh and a shrug. No, Derek hated detours the way sailors hate storms, the way merchants hate thieves, the way old dogs hate new tricks. He hated them because 3 years ago, a detour had killed his wife. They'd taken a different road home from market. "Let's see the wildflowers," she'd said, smiling that smile that made him agree to anything. Bandits don't care about wildflowers. They care about purses and screaming and the sound a body makes when it hits the ground. So now, at 34 years old, Derek stuck to main roads, paid roads, safe roads. Roads where the only surprise was how boring they were. He travelled alone, sold his spices, counted his coins, and went home to an empty house that still smelled like her lavender soap, even though the bottle had been empty for 2 years. The merchants in every town knew him. Derek the Ghost, they called him. Not because he was pale, though he was, but because he moved through life like he wasn't quite there anymore. Present, but not participating. Breathing, but not living. Luther, a spice merchant from the northern provinces who'd been trying to outsell Derek for years, had a different name for him. Derek the Coward. He'd say it just loud enough for Derek to hear, always counting his coins with nervous fingers, even as he insulted. Click, click, click went the silver pieces. Man who won't even take a shortcut through the woods. Man afraid of his own shadow. Derek never responded, because Luther was right. The morning everything changed started like every other morning for the past 3 years. Derek woke in an inn that looked exactly like the last inn, ate bread that tasted exactly like yesterday's bread, loaded his mule with spice sacks that weighed exactly what they always weighed. The bone whistle hung around his neck like it always did. She'd carved it in their 2nd year of marriage, back when they still collected herbs together in the forests near their village. The whistle was their signal. 1 sharp note meant, "I'm here." 2 meant, "I need help." 3 meant, "Come quickly." He hadn't blown it once in 3 years. Couldn't bear to hear the sound without her whistle answering back. The road north stretched ahead like it always did. Dusty, safe, boring. Exactly how Derek liked it. Then, 2 hours into his journey, the road split. A wooden sign leaned drunkenly at the fork. Left arrow, North Road, 3 days. Right arrow, Forest Pass, 1.5 days. Derek stared at that right arrow like it had personally insulted him. Forest Pass, a shortcut. The kind of shortcut that saved time and money. The kind that every smart merchant would take. The kind his wife would have wanted to take. His hand went to the whistle at his neck. The bone was smooth from 3 years of nervous touching, warm from his body heat. The carved oak leaves his wife had etched into the surface were wearing down, becoming ghosts of themselves. "Main road," Derek muttered to his mule. "We take the main road, always." But Luther's voice echoed in his head. Coward. Man afraid of his own shadow. The mule made a sound that might have been agreement, or might have been gas. Hard to tell with mules. Derek looked at the forest path. Dense trees, green shadows, the sound of running water somewhere in the distance. Everything in him screamed to go left. Take the safe road, the known road, the road where nothing unexpected would happen because nothing unexpected ever happened on safe roads. His hand squeezed the bone whistle. "Fine," he said to no one. "One shortcut, one time, to prove I can." He turned right. The forest swallowed him within minutes. Not in a threatening way, at least not at first. Just in the way forests do with their green walls and filtered sunlight and the peculiar quiet that makes you aware of how loud your own breathing is. The path was clear enough. Well worn. Other merchants used it, obviously. Derek told himself this repeatedly. Other merchants, smart merchants, living merchants. An hour in, the sound of water grew louder. A river by the sound of it. Fast-moving. Derek's cartwheels rumbled over a wooden bridge so old that crossing it felt like negotiating with death itself. Every plank creaked a different language of complaint. That's when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong, not the rushing water, not the birds, something else, something that made every hair on his neck stand up like soldiers at attention, splashing, violent splashing, and under it something worse, choking, gasping, the wet, desperate sounds of someone drowning. Derek's first instinct, the instinct 3 years of grief had trained into him like a war dog learns to kill, was to keep walking. Not your problem, not your business. People die every day, and you can't save them all, and trying just gets you killed too. But his feet stopped anyway. "Damn it," Derek whispered. He tied his mule to a tree with hands that shook just slightly, left his cart, followed the terrible sounds through the underbrush until the river opened up before him in all its furious glory. And there, 20 feet from shore, thrashing in water that clearly wanted her dead, was an orc. Derek's brain needed 3 full seconds to process this. An orc, green skin catching sunlight like polished jade, black hair plastered to her skull. Arms that looked strong enough to snap trees flailing uselessly against the current. Armor that should have made her sink like a stone somehow, keeping her barely afloat. The leather and metal plates catching air in all the wrong ways. She was young, maybe early 20s. Same height as Derek, which meant short for an orc, and she was drowning. Their eyes met across 20 feet of water. Hers were yellow, true gold, like honey in sunlight. Terror lived in those eyes. Not anger, not the savage rage Derek had been taught orcs possessed, just pure animal terror. The kind of terror that said, "I'm 22 years old and I'm about to die and I don't want to." Derek stood on that riverbank and time did that thing time does in moments that matter. It stretched, became elastic. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, Derek's entire life rewound and played forward simultaneously. Every choice, every safe decision, every detour avoided. 3 years of walking through life like a ghost because the alternative, actually living, meant risking this exact moment. This choice, this impossible, stupid choice between being smart and being decent. The orc's head went under, came back up, went under again. Derek looked around with the frantic energy of panic trying to disguise itself as planning. No rope, no boat, no other people, just him and a drowning orc, and about 30 seconds before the decision made itself by her dying. He could walk away, should walk away. Everyone would understand. She's an orc, enemy of humanity, monster, green-skinned killer. Walking away wasn't cowardice, it was common sense. Coward, man afraid of his own shadow. "Oh, for the love of—" Derek didn't finish the sentence. His hands moved before his brain approved the action. The bone whistle's cord snapped. He barely noticed. The whistle fell somewhere in the mud. He'd worry about that later if there was a later. What Derek did next would later be called genius by some and insanity by others. The truth was simpler. It was just a man who'd spent 3 years studying how to avoid disasters, suddenly applying that knowledge to cause one on purpose. The forest around him wasn't just trees and brush. It was materials, components, a workshop that nature had spent centuries building. Fallen logs, not rotted but weathered, check. Wild grapevines, thick as his wrist, tested dozens daily on his herb-collecting days with his wife. Check. Saplings flexible enough to bend without breaking. Check. The water wanted the orc dead. Fine. Derek would use the water itself as an anchor. He grabbed the thickest vine he could reach and tested it with his full weight. Held. He wrapped it around a massive oak tree 3 times, the kind of wrapping that said, "I don't trust you, but I need you." Tied it off with a merchant's knot, the kind that tightened under pressure instead of loosening. Then he grabbed a fallen log, maybe 8 feet long, thick as his thigh, dragged it to the water's edge. His back screamed, his arms screamed. His common sense screamed loudest of all. The orc's head vanished again. 4 seconds, 5, 6. Derek threaded the vine through a natural split in the log, pulled it tight. Now he had a lever. A fishing rod for humans, a stupidly dangerous piece of engineering that would either save her life or kill them both. He waded into the water up to his waist. The current tried immediately to negotiate his relationship with the riverbank. "How about you come with us?" it suggested, with aggressive hospitality. How about no? Derek gasped, legs braced against rocks. He swung the log out over the water like a spear, using the vine as a pivot point. The current caught it, tried to take it. The vine held. The log swung out into the current exactly where the orc had just surfaced for what might be her last time. "Grab it!" Derek roared. His voice cracked, not the dignified hero yell he would have preferred. More the desperate scream of a man betting everything on a plan he'd invented 30 seconds ago. For one terrible moment, he thought she wouldn't understand common. Thought she'd drown without ever knowing he'd tried. Then her hand, green fingers tipped with blunt nails, leather bracer waterlogged and useless, shot out and grabbed the log. The vine snapped taut. The tree held. Derek's shoulders felt like they were being pulled from their sockets. "Don't let go." He pulled, hand over hand. Every merchant's muscle earned from years of loading carts suddenly called into service for something that actually mattered. The vine scraped his palms raw, blood mixed with river water mixed with sweat. The orc clung to that log like it was the only solid thing left in a world gone liquid. Her other hand found purchase. She was helping, pulling herself along the log even as Derek pulled the log toward shore. 20 feet became 15, 15 became 10. Derek's legs found purchase on muddy bank. He pulled, she pulled. The river tried to keep her, tried hard, made excellent arguments about possession being 9/10 of the law. But Derek had spent 3 years running from life, and something in him had apparently decided that today, right now, was when running stopped. One final pull. The orc's body hit the shallows. She crawled, actually crawled on hands and knees like a child, through the last few feet of water and collapsed on the bank. Derek collapsed next to her. For a solid minute, the only sounds were gasping. His lungs, her lungs, both organs voting heavily against ever doing anything this stupid again. The orc rolled onto her back, chest heaving, water pooling around her. She stared up at the canopy of trees like she'd never seen leaves before. Like everything looked different when you'd just accepted death and then got to take the acceptance back. Derek lay next to her, close enough to smell the river water and leather, and something else, something sharp and mineral that might have been orc, or might have been his own fear. Then she turned her head, looked at him, really looked at him. Her eyes were still that impossible gold, but the terror was gone now, replaced by something Derek couldn't quite read. Confusion, maybe. Wonder. The expression of someone trying to solve a math problem that shouldn't exist. "You—" Her voice came out rough, waterlogged, but the word was common, clear common. "You pulled me out." It wasn't a question, but Derek answered anyway. "Yeah. Why?" And there it was. The question Derek had been avoiding asking himself for the last 2 minutes because he didn't have a good answer. He could say, because it was the right thing to do, true but incomplete. He could say, because I'm not a coward, closer to the truth but still not quite there. What came out was, because you were drowning. The orc's laugh surprised them both. It came out as a cough, then a wheeze, then something that might have been actual amusement if it wasn't so wet and broken-sounding. "Yes," she said. "I was definitely doing that." Derek sat up. His entire body felt like one continuous bruise. The bone whistle was gone. He could feel the absence at his throat like a missing tooth you can't stop checking with your tongue. 3 years of keeping that one connection, and he'd lost it saving an orc he didn't know. The thought should have devastated him. Instead, he felt lighter, like losing the whistle had somehow also lost the weight of carrying it. "Can you stand?" Derek asked. The orc tried, made it halfway before her legs informed her that they'd be sitting this one out. "Thank you very much." She sat back down hard. "No, apparently not." "Right." Derek looked back toward where he'd left his cart. Still there. The mule was probably judging him. Mules were good at that. "I have a camp, 1/2 mile back. Can you—" He trailed off, because the orc was staring at him with an expression that made Derek deeply uncomfortable. It was the look people gave religious relics. The look that said whatever just happened was bigger than just happened. "What?" Derek asked. "You're human." Last time I checked. I'm orc. Yes, I noticed. Humans don't save orcs. Derek shrugged. This one apparently does. The orc opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't understand. Join the club, Derek muttered. I've got badges and everything. She shook her head, and water droplets flew like tiny diamonds. No, you don't understand. In orc culture, when someone saves your life, she took a breath. Let it out. There's a word, Drakkor. It means a debt that can't be repaid, bond that can't be broken. I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything. The look she gave him could have melted steel. That's not how this works. Well, that's how it works for me. Derek stood, wincing as his back informed him that today was a terrible day to be alive. Come on, camp, food. Then you can go wherever you were going before you decided to fight a river and lose. The orc looked away. I wasn't fighting it. She didn't finish. But Derek saw something flicker across her face that made his merchant's instincts, finely tuned to reading when someone was hiding something, start ringing alarm bells. You weren't trying to cross, were you? Silence. The armor. Derek continued, pieces clicking into place with a sound like doors locking. No orc wears full battle armor just to cross a river, not unless they wanted the armor to drag them down, not unless... The orc looked at him, really looked at him, and in her eyes, Derek saw something he recognized, the same thing he'd seen in his own mirror every morning for 3 years, someone who'd given up. Oh, Derek said quietly. Oh, I see. You don't, the orc said, but her voice cracked. You can't. Try me. And so, sitting on a muddy riverbank with a stranger who shouldn't exist, the orc called Skaria began to talk. Her name meant sharp stone in Orcish, the kind of stone you use to make weapons, the kind that cuts clean and true. She told Derek this while they walked, slowly, painfully, back to his camp. She leaned on his shoulder because pride is cheap and walking is expensive when you've just nearly drowned. Derek tried not to think about the fact that an orc warrior was using him as a crutch, tried not to think about how his village would react to this image, tried not to think at all, really. Thinking had gotten him into this mess. I'm from the Iron Peak clan, Skaria said, north of here, 3 days' march, where... She paused. We were warriors, proud, strong, the kind of clan that songs mention. Were, she confirmed, past tense, as of 48 hours ago. They reached Derek's camp. His mule gave them a look that eloquently communicated, I don't get paid enough for this. Derek grabbed dried meat, bread, and his water skin. Skaria ate like someone who'd forgotten food existed, which Derek supposed she almost had. Tell me, Derek said, settling onto a log across from her. Skaria stared into the small fire Derek had built. The flames reflected in her golden eyes, making them look molten. You know how orcs view battle? I know the stories, honor, strength, die with a weapon in your hand. All true, but there's more. She took a breath. In Iron Peak, warriors are tested. Battle trials, you face an opponent and you prove yourself worthy. She looked down at her hands. Strong hands. Warrior's hands. I froze. Derek waited. My brother Brog, he's 17, still learning. They put him against a seasoned warrior for his trial. It's supposed to be hard but fair. But this warrior, he was drunk, angry about something. He came at Brog with killing intent. Skaria's hands clenched into fists. I was in the crowd. I saw it, saw Brog's eyes. He knew he was about to die. And her voice cracked. I jumped into the ring, broke the sacred rules, stopped the fight. You saved your brother's life. I ruined his honor. Skaria's voice rose, sharp with pain. In orc culture, you die in your trial or you pass it. Those are the only options. By saving him, I marked him as someone too weak to save himself. The clan will never see him as a true warrior now. And me? She laughed, and it was the saddest sound Derek had ever heard. I broke the most sacred rule. You don't interfere in trials. Ever. Not even to save family. So they exiled you. Groth, our clan leader, gave me a choice. die in honorable combat, or leave and never return. I chose exile, figured I could live with shame. Brog, she swallowed. Brog looked at me with such hate. I stole his chance to die with honor. I stole his chance to live with honor. I left him with nothing. Derek poked the fire with a stick, watched sparks spiral upward into the darkening sky. And the river? I walked for 2 days. No direction, no purpose. Then I found that river, and I thought— She met his eyes. I thought maybe I could fix what I'd broken. If I died, maybe Brog's honor would be restored. Maybe the clan would forget the sister who shamed them. Maybe you could stop hurting, Derek finished quietly. Skaria nodded. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. The mule made digestive noises that were deeply philosophical in their complexity. Finally, Derek spoke. 3 years ago, my wife wanted to take a detour, see wildflowers. I said yes because I loved her. Bandits killed her on that detour. I've spent 3 years avoiding detours, avoiding risk, avoiding everything that makes life worth living. I became a ghost because ghosts can't lose anything else. He looked up at Skaria. Today I took a shortcut, found you, and I think— He touched his neck where the whistle used to hang. I think maybe we both needed to stop drowning. Skaria stared at him. You lost something in the river. When you saved me, I saw it fall. A whistle. My wife made it. Last piece of her I had. I can find it, Skaria said immediately. I'm a better swimmer than any human. When I'm not wearing armor designed to sink me, I can— No, Derek repeated, firm, but not harsh. I lost it saving you. He searched for words. That's what it was for. Turns out, all this time, I was carrying it so I could lose it saving someone who needed saving. Skaria's eyes shimmered. Tears? Derek wasn't sure orcs cried. Wasn't sure about a lot of things anymore. Dracacor, she whispered. Life debt. Bond debt. You saved me twice. Once from water. Once from myself. You don't owe— That's not how this works. Skaria stood, suddenly animated with the kind of energy that comes from finally understanding something fundamental. You humans, you save someone, and you say you're welcome, and you walk away. But orcs? We don't walk away. Can't, won't. You saved my life, Derek. That life is yours now, by law, by custom, by everything I am. Derek stood too. I don't want your life. Then what do you want? The question hung in the air between them like smoke. What did Derek want? He'd spent 3 years wanting nothing except to not hurt anymore, but looking at this orc warrior with waterlogged armor and eyes like molten gold, Derek felt something stir that he thought had drowned with his wife. I want, he said slowly, to not be alone. Skaria tilted her head. I can work with that. They traveled together after that. Skaria couldn't go back to her clan. Derek didn't want to go back to his ghost life. So they went forward, north, toward nothing in particular, toward something in general. The first day was awkward. Derek wasn't used to company, and Skaria wasn't used to humans, who didn't immediately try to kill her. They walked. Didn't talk much, just walked. The second day, Derek asked about orc culture. Skaria asked about human culture. They discovered that both involved more stupid traditions than either species wanted to admit. So let me get this straight, Derek said, leading his mule through a particularly nasty patch of forest. If an orc saves another orc's life, the saved orc becomes basically a servant. Not a servant, a Dracor. It's different. How? Servants do what they're told. Dracor do what's needed, even if it contradicts orders. That sounds like philosophy dressed up as servitude. Skaria grinned. Maybe, but it works. Keeps orcs from feeling powerless after being saved. Gives them a way to pay back with action, instead of just feeling grateful and useless. Derek considered this. So you're my Dracor. Until I save your life. Then we're even. What if you never have to save my life? Then I guess I'm stuck with you. She said it with a smile that showed small tusks, not threatening, just different. On the third day they met Luther. The merchant practically materialized from the forest like a particularly money-focused ghost. His eyes went wide when he saw Derek walking with an orc. His hands went immediately to his coin purse, fingers counting invisible money in rapid, nervous clicks. "Derek?" Luther's voice squeaked. "Derek, what is that white—" "Hello, Luther. That's an orc." "Yes, I'm aware. You're traveling with an orc." "Also aware." Luther's brain seemed to be processing this information the way a mill processes grain, slowly, with lots of grinding sounds. "But you're Derek the ghost. Derek who won't even take shortcuts. Derek who's afraid of his own shadow?" Derek finished. He looked at Skaria, then back at Luther. "Yeah, turns out I was afraid, but not anymore. She'll kill you in your sleep." Skaria snorted. "If I wanted him dead, I'd do it while he's awake. More honorable." Luther's face went through several colors, none of them healthy. "This is insane. This is suicide. Everyone will think—" "Let them think," Derek interrupted. His voice was calm, certain. The voice of a man who'd made a choice and was done apologizing for it. "I spent 3 years dead already. I'd rather be alive and insane than safe and empty." Luther backed away, still counting invisible coins. Click, click, click. "You've lost your mind." "Found it, actually," Derek corrected. "It was at the bottom of a river." Luther practically ran back down the trail, probably to tell everyone about Derek's apparent descent into madness. Derek watched him go, then looked at Skaria. "That could have gone better. Could have gone worse," Skaria said. "He could have tried to fight me. Would you have hurt him?" "Probably not. He's too pathetic to be worth the effort." She paused. "Does it bother you? What people will think?" Derek thought about his wife. About wildflowers and detours, and 3 years of living like a ghost. About a bone whistle at the bottom of a river, and an orc girl who'd given up on living until someone gave her a reason not to. "No," he said, "it doesn't." 2 weeks into their journey, Skaria found the whistle. They were camped near a stream. Not the same river, but close enough that Skaria had spent an hour that evening diving while Derek prepared dinner. She emerged from the water just as the sun was setting, holding something in her hand. "I found it," she said, breathless with excitement. 3 miles downstream, caught in rocks. "I found it." She held out the bone whistle, still intact. Still carved with oak leaves, but different now, softened by water, worn smooth. Derek took it, held it up to the firelight. His wife had made this, had carved each leaf with patient love, had given it to him with a smile that said, "This is how I'll always find you." "Thank you," he said. Skaria sat across from him, dripping water but grinning. "Now we're even, right? I saved your whistle. You saved my life. Dracor complete." Derek turned the whistle over in his hands. "No, no, no," Derek repeated. He pulled out his knife, the small one he used for cutting rope and opening packages and the 1,000 small tasks merchants do daily. Skaria watched as Derek began to carve, slowly, carefully. On the opposite side of the whistle from his wife's oak leaves, he carved a new symbol, an orc symbol he'd asked Skaria to teach him days ago, the mark of Iron Peak Clan, the mark that meant honor through action. When he finished, he held it up. 2 sides, human and orc, past and present, pain and healing. "Now," Derek said, "it's complete." Skaria's eyes widened. You kept my clan mark, even though they exiled me. It's part of you, part of your story." Derek looped the whistle back around his neck. The cord was new. He'd made it from leather 3 days ago, but the whistle felt right. "Besides, I think your clan got it wrong." "How so?" "They thought you broke their honor by saving your brother. But honor isn't about following rules perfectly. It's about choosing what matters when the rules demand you choose wrong." Skaria was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My brother Brug. Before I left, he gave me something." She pulled a small leather pouch from her belt, opened it. Inside were stones, dozens of them. Different colors, different sizes. "He collects a stone from every place he fights, his whole life carried with him." She held up one stone, smooth, grey, unremarkable. "This is from his trial. The trial I ruined. He gave it to me before I left, said, her voice cracked, said he wanted me to carry at least one of his victories, even if I took all the rest from him. Derek didn't know what to say, so he did what his wife had taught him years ago. He reached out and took Skaria's hand, just held it, human fingers and orc fingers, different colors but same warmth. They sat like that until the fire burned low. 4 months later, Derek's cart pulled into the town of Millbrook. Skaria walked beside him, no longer hiding. People stared. Some fled. One woman threw a potato which Skaria caught and ate, thanking the woman for her aggressive generosity. They'd become a team. Derek handled the talking and trading. Skaria handled the heavy lifting, and the occasional drunk who thought picking a fight with an orc woman was a brilliant idea. Turns out, drunk humans and sober orcs are a very one-sided fight. Business was different. Some merchants refused to deal with Derek at all, called him race traitor, monster lover, worse things, but others saw something they'd never seen before. Saw a human and an orc working together, saw proof that maybe the old hatreds didn't have to be forever. Sales were actually up. Turns out having an orc partner made you memorable, and in the merchant business, memorable was currency. You know what's funny? Derek said one evening, counting the day's earnings, while Skaria sharpened her knife by the fire. What? Luther called me a coward for 3 years, said I was afraid of everything. And he was right. I was afraid, terrified, every day. Derek looked up at her. But being afraid isn't the problem. The problem is letting fear make your choices for you, Skaria nodded. In my clan, we say, strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is fear that's been given purpose. Your clan says wise things sometimes. Sometimes, Skaria agreed. The rest of the time, we're idiots who exile our own daughters for loving their brothers too much. Yeah. That is pretty stupid. They shared a laugh. Easy. Comfortable. The kind of laugh that comes from 4 months of facing the world together and discovering that together was better than alone ever was. Derek, Skaria asked. Yeah. What happens when we run out of road? Derek thought about this. About ghost lives and detours and choices that mattered. About a bone whistle that now carried 2 stories instead of 1. About an orc girl who'd given up on living and a human man who'd forgotten how. I guess, he said slowly, we pick a new road and see where it goes. Together? Together, Skaria smiled. I can work with that. 5 years later, in a small trading post at the border between human and orc territories, a strange sight had become common. A human merchant named Derek ran the post. He sold spices and fabrics and tools to anyone who had coin, regardless of skin color. And beside him always was an orc woman named Skaria, who served as guard, translator, and partner. The trading post had become neutral ground, a place where humans and orcs could trade without war, could talk without fighting, could begin slowly, painfully, to see each other as people instead of monsters. It wasn't perfect. Some weeks business was terrible because both sides refused to shop there. Some nights they had to defend the post from humans who thought Derek was a traitor. Some mornings they woke to find orcish threats carved into the door. But it was something, a seed planted, a bridge built. One cold morning, a young orc entered the post, 17 years old. Carrying a sack that clinked with the sound of stones, Skaria looked up from inventory, froze. Brog, her brother, stood in the doorway, bigger now, scarred, a warrior in full. His eyes, the same gold as hers, were wet. Sister, he said in Orcish. His voice was deeper, harder, but cracked around the edges. I've come to... He opened his sack, dumped stones onto the counter. Hundreds of them, a lifetime of battles, a lifetime of victories. I've fought in 63 battles since you left, Brog said. 159, lost 4 but lived to tell. The clan considers me a true warrior now. They sing songs about me. He looked down, but every victory felt empty. Because the person who taught me that strength means protecting those weaker than you wasn't there to see it. Tears ran down Skaria's green cheeks. Brog, You were right, he interrupted. The clan was wrong. Honor isn't about dying when you're supposed to. It's about living in a way that makes your life mean something. He looked at Derek, then back at Skaria. I renounced the clan. Told Groth he could exile me too. Told him you were worth more than all their stupid rules combined. They let you go? Eventually. Brog grinned, and it was a warrior's grin. After I challenged Groth and knocked out 3 of his teeth. Skaria laughed, cried, grabbed her brother in a hug that would have broken a human's ribs. Derek watched, smiling, one hand touching the bone whistle at his throat. 2 sides, 2 stories, 2 lives that found each other at the bottom of a river and decided to climb out together. Later that night, after Brog had fallen asleep by the fire, Derek and Skaria sat outside looking at stars. 5 years ago, Derek said, I was a ghost, dead but walking, going through the motions of life without actually living. 5 years ago, Skaria replied, I was drowning, ready to give up. Sure, the world had no place for me. And now, Skaria thought about this, about her brother sleeping safely inside, about the trading post that stood as proof that old hatreds could be overcome, about a human man who'd risked everything to save an orc he didn't know, about 5 years of choosing each other every day, despite a world that said they shouldn't. Now, she said, I'm alive, really alive, for the first time maybe ever. Derek pulled out the bone whistle, ran his thumb over the carvings, oak leaves and clan symbols, human and orc, past and future living on the same piece of bone. My wife made this, he said softly, so I could always find her. I thought when she died, it lost its purpose. He looked at Skaria, but I was wrong. Its purpose wasn't just to find her. It was to remind me that being found is what makes us human. Being found and choosing to find others. He raised the whistle to his lips. For the first time in 5 years, Derek blew it, one clear, sharp note that echoed across the night. Skaria responded with an orc war cry. Not a challenge, not a threat, but the kind of cry that says, I am here, I am alive, I am found. 2 sounds, impossibly different, echoing together under the same stars. You know what's funny? Derek asked. What? Luther was right. I was a coward, afraid of everything. He looked at the trading post, at the smoke rising from its chimney. But then I met a drowning orc girl who needed saving. And she saved me right back. Skaria leaned against his shoulder. That's not funny. That's just true. Yeah, Derek agreed. I guess it is. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars wheel overhead. 2 lives that shouldn't have intersected. 2 people who chose each other when the world said they shouldn't. 2 stories carved into the same bone whistle, different but harmonious. The trading post would stand for another 50 years, would grow into a town, would become a symbol of what was possible when people chose connection over fear, action over inaction, life over survival. But that night, it was just a small building with firelight in the windows, and 2 unlikely friends sitting outside, grateful to be found, grateful to be alive, grateful for detours that led to impossible rescues and chosen families and lives worth living. Derek touched the whistle one more time. 2 sides, 2 stories, 1 choice that changed everything. The bravest warriors aren't the ones who never feel fear. They're the ones who choose to save others despite it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose connection over fear. Derek chose to save a stranger. Skaria chose to live again. Both chose to build something impossible together. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, I have a small favor to ask. Hit that like button. It tells YouTube that stories like this matter, that human emotion and orc honor deserve to be heard. Every like helps this story reach someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment below. I want to know. Have you ever made a choice that everyone said was wrong but you knew was right? Have you ever saved someone or been saved in ways that changed everything? Your stories matter. Share them with us. And if you're not subscribed to Orcbound Tales yet, what are you waiting for? We tell stories about impossible bonds, broken people healing each other, and choices that echo across lifetimes. Stories where orcs aren't monsters. They're warriors with honor deeper than any human sword. Stories where love transcends species And courage means choosing others over yourself. Subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss a story that might change how you see the world. This channel grows because of you. Every like, every comment, every share tells me to keep creating stories that matter. Stories that make you feel something real in a world that often feels too cold. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Until the next tale, stay brave, stay kind, and remember, the best families are the ones we choose.